So good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the first part of the Otters of the World IOSF World Otter Day webinar series. It's a great pleasure and delight that we have you all with us today and joining us for the webinars. We're really thankful to have you and to share this celebration together. As many of you will know, there are two different webinars taking place across the day where IOSF has invited individuals and otter experts from around the world to share their knowledge and experiences with us. The webinars have been chosen to have two so that we can kind of cover all time zones and allow as many people to be involved. We are delighted to have over 60 countries across the two webinars attending and over 350 people. So thank you for joining us once again. Just a bit of housekeeping before we get going with the amazing presentations that we're going to be able to witness today. If you have any questions for any of the presenters, including myself, then please use the questions and answer or the chat box. If we can try and keep the questions for each individual person after their presentation. So Dr. Paul of IOSF will go first. So if you could ask his questions after his presentation, then it'll just be a little bit easier for myself to keep everything going. At the end of the presentation, we will invite you to ask questions to all of our panelists and get any answers and kind of learn as much otter knowledge as you can during this celebration that we're having. For this morning's session, we are delighted to be joined by five amazing otter folks. So we will be offered presentations from the following. We have Dr. Paul YOXON, who will be presenting on otters and the work of the International Otter Survival Fund. We have Padmanda Silva, who unfortunately cannot present, and I will be presenting on her behalf, but she has kindly presented, put together a presentation on otters of Asia and the conservation of Asian otters. We have Omar AL-SHEIKHLY of Iraq, who is going to produce a presentation on the legendary Maxwell's otter, a subspecies of the smooth-coated otter, the distribution, threats, and the conservation work of otters in Iraq. We have Dung Nguyen of Save Vietnam's Wildlife, who is going to put a presentation to us on the the rehab of rescued otters and the threat to wild otter populations in Vietnam. And finally, we have Woo Chi Young, who is going to present on the research of Kuala Selangor Otters, including the rare hairy-nosed otter, and the work of the Malaysian Otter Network. We're absolutely delighted to have all of you with us today. So on behalf of IOSF and behalf of myself, thank you for the panelists and the presenters for joining us. And thank you for all your time for the attendees coming to listen and share this day with us. So without further ado, I'll pass you over to Dr. Paul YOXON of the International Otter Survival Fund for his presentation entitled Otters and the Work of the International Otter Survival Fund. If you have any questions as Paul goes through his presentation, please feel free to put them in either the chat box or the Q&A box, and following his presentation, I will put as many as I can towards Paul to answer them for you. So Dr. Paul, if you would want to kind of introduce yourself, put your mic and camera on, and we can get going. Thank you, guys.
Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody to the webinar. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Okay, that's fine. I will begin with a little sort of brief history of how the World Otter Day became about. It began in 2009 as the Otterly Mad Week, and we had events in schools and colleges, and then it evolved in 2014 in the Otter Awareness Day, and then in 2016 it evolved into the IOSF World Otter Day. But to date, IOSF has about 130,000 followers worldwide. These are all the places that the World Otter Day is being done around the world. in 63 countries. So it's really, really popular. I'd like to show a short video on the plight of the otters in the world. Something's happened with the video, so I'll go on.
If you try and click play again, it might work. It might have just paused itself. So okay, we'll just start from the start again. That's fine.
No, it's not.
That's fine.
I'll go on. Okay, otters are members of the mustelid family, so they're related to weasels and stoat, pine martens, badgers. If you think that they're incredibly an aggressive family, if you think the weasel is the most aggressive mammal on the planet, it can kill and carry 10 times its weight. An animal like a tiger or a lion can't do that. There are 13 species of otters in the world, carrying on most continents other than Australia, New Zealand and Antarctica. This is the IUCN list of the otters, and all of them are declining except the American river otter. But I would actually debate this because we don't have the evidence of populations in America, and America is one of the only countries in the world that still kills otters for the fur. I mean, there used to be about 50,000 otters killed in America, and some of the furs are imported into the European Union. So let's look at one species at the moment, the Eurasian otter, Lutra lutra. It's a semi-aquatic mammal, so it's compromised. Unlike a whale or a seal that has a really thick blubber layer, an otter has to run on the land as well. So it relies on its insulation by its fur. It has an inner fur that's got 50,000 hairs per square centimetre, and that traps air, and it has an outer fur that acts like a waterproof coat. The sea otter that spends most of its time in the sea has 100,000 hairs per square centimetre. The diet of the Eurasian otter, it eats mostly fish, make up about 85%, and it'll eat small mammals, frogs and birds. We've lost a lot of our hens to otters over the years. The Eurasian otter was one of the sad casualties of the 20th century. It declined 95% of its range in Western Europe, and it became extinct in Switzerland, Belgium and Holland. They have reintroduced otters in Holland. That's semi-successful because a lot of them are still getting killed on the roads. In Switzerland, they tried the reintroduction in 1978 and it failed, and they said sometimes you cannot repair nature no matter how much effort and money you put in. This is the worldwide distribution of the Eurasian otter. It all looks quite nice, but we really don't know much about the populations in China and Russia. This is UK populations in 1950. Everything was okay, and after 1950 something went really bad with the population in Great Britain and also in Western Europe, and there was a reason for this. There was also a magazine called The Gamekeeper. It came out in 1960, and it said, it led on the front, where have all the otters gone? So the rivers were being canalized, the channel, sorry, for boats. There was habitat loss, there was hunting and disturbance. Otters weren't protected in England and Wales until 79, and it was not until, I think, 1984 in Scotland. But the main cause of the decline was organochlorines. These were compounds like dieldrin and aldrin that were used in sheep dip and the coating of seeds, and they incredibly toxic. And they were banned in a lot of countries and also Great Britain, but they still have accumulated in the environment. We've got present day sorts of pollution problems. PCBs, these polychlorinated biphols, they were banned, but they're still leaking into the environment from landfill sort of sites. And there's a new group of chemicals called PCDDs that you used in flame retardants in cars, etc. And they cause a loss of vitamin A, and you need vitamin A to fight off illness. And Cardiff University Otter Project identified endocrine disruptors. They affect the hormones, and they're found in cans, in bottled water, in the suntan lotion. And Cardiff University found the otter's penis bone of the male was shrinking by 3%. So this will have also an effect on our own population. But the governments have packed in funding a lot of this work in our country. We used to have institutions like the Institute of Terrestrial Ecology, where Hans Crook and Jim Conroy did amazing work, but all this is gone now. It's all closed down. The International Otter Survival Fund works in 4 main areas. It works in research. We do population work on the Isle of Skye and also the islands in the Hebrides. We've done a lot of work on otter rehabilitation. We've cared for over 200 otters in our own sanctuary and helped care for 160 otters in 45 countries in the world. We do education. Obviously, we've got the World Otter Awareness Day. We've got international training workshops, and we set up a Team Otter that Ben will talk about more, the children's education work program. We do a community education. We campaigned for the fur trade for pets and the way otters use in traditional medicine in China. This is work we do on sort of trying to reduce otter mortality. The biggest cause of non-natural death is on the roads, but that's probably also because otters are found dead on the roads. If an otter has another problem, it will probably crawl off into the holt. We've used wildlife warning reflectors in Orkney and Skye. You can see one of them there, and we put wildlife warning reflectors in all the hotspots where we'd have more than 3 otters killed in over a 5-year period. And this was before the wildlife warning reflectors and after. They actually pump a beam of light at right angles to the road, and it startles the animal. We have about 12 orphaned otters a year in our otter sanctuary. They're mostly orphaned, mostly because the mother's been killed on the road. And because otters stay with the mother 13 to 14 months, it's a long process to bring them up, and it's quite expensive. Probably costs about £1,200 for each otter cub. And these are some of the ones that we've had in our sanctuary. These are the cubs by month of the year, and we get otter cubs throughout the year, with really less in the summer months. So how do we bring up an otter cub? We aren't obviously vets ourselves, so we always use the local vet. We have an indoor hospital where we feed the animals on milk. We import the milk from America because our otters can't take lactose in cow's milk. If you feed otters cow's milk, you slowly just kill them. We have outdoor enclosures, and then we have the release. And we have done monitoring over the years where we've glued a transmitter to the back of the neck of the otter, because it's not worth putting all this effort in if they're not going to integrate back into the wild. We have about 85% success rate of otters integrating back into the wild. The International Otter Fund has been going since '93, so I think it's 28 years old this year, and we've managed to fund work on all 13 species. And this is the work we've done. The blue is the work we've done since '93, and the sort of orangey colour is the work we're doing at the present. And I'd like to talk you through some of the work we've done in other countries. We've funded diet on the Cape Clawless otter in South Africa. We've done the diet and ecology of the sea cat. That's one of the smallest otters in the world, and it occurs, it's really rare. It occurs on some of the islands off the Chilean coast. It weighs about 5 kilograms. We've campaigned to stop the fur trade in America. As I mentioned, the America were killing illegally about 50,000 otters a year for the fur trade. We've camped with the American Legal Defense Fund, and we're still campaigning against this. America moans quite rightly as Asian countries who hunt otters and saying is wrong, but they're really poor countries. And I was in Vietnam, and there was one guy who said if he kills an otter, he can get as much for the pelt than he can from the fish in his a fish pond. So it's not really for us Western conservationists to argue that he's only trying to look after his family. In 1998, I was in the Czech Republic on an otter conference, and I talked to a lot of the Asian otter people, and they said the hairy-nosed otter was extinct. So we managed to get some funding from the Rainforest Foundation, and we funded work in Cambodia and then Vietnam, and we found small populations of the hairy-nosed otters, and they've now found populations in Thailand and other countries in Asia. We've done work in the Democratic Republic of Congo. This was Mazu, a Congo clawless otter. The fisherman killed its mother and brought it up as a baby, but it became an ambassador, and the local chief of the tribe, he said to the people he doesn't want them ever killing otters again. Mazu eventually went back to the wild. I can't change the slide. If you just hold on, I'll see what happens. Okay, thank you. This was Dara. This was the only captive hairy-nosed otter in the world, and it was living in atrocious conditions in Cambodia. And we managed to get some funding and built it a really wonderful enclosure. And these were some Buddhist monks who blessed it when it was released back. The alarming trade in otter furs we've been campaigning on. Interpol says the illegal trade in wildlife products is worth about $12 billion a year. It's worth far more than the drugs trade. In the past, concern about trading skins and body parts is largely concentrated on the large fauna, and things like otters have been forgotten. But our friend in India, Dr. Hussain, said for every 1 tiger skin, 10 otter skins are found, and in one case, the 6 of these otters were the hairy-nosed otter. This is 778 otter skins in a market in Nepal. If you look at the size of the gentleman standing, it's quite horrific. The alarming trade, otters as pets, we've had campaigns in. Japan, they have otter cafes where you can go and have a cup of coffee and cuddle an otter. I don't know why anybody would want to, because they're so aggressive. When we were in Indonesia, in Jakarta, there's about 700 people have Asian short-clawed otters as pets, and every Sunday they walk them in the parks. People kill the mothers and then they take the young babies and tame them. We've had otter training workshops in Cambodia, Indonesia, Bangladesh, Tanzania, China, Laos, and Guyana. We had the otter training workshop in Tanzania, in the place where they train the rangers for Kenya and Tanzania, and the director asked me into his office and I said, why are you doing it here? We don't have any otters in Tanzania. And I said, yes, you do. You have 3 species. So this is why they're sort of forgotten, because everybody concentrates on the bigger animals. We had our workshops consist of indoor sessions where we train the local people. We don't go in as Westerners saying this is what you should do. It's more important to train the people and they go and educate in the field. We have the field training. This was us looking for evidence of Asian short-clawed sprained, which I've found it smells quite disgusting. We did education material in different languages we could give to the rangers so they could identify the different species, and this was funded by the Rufford Foundation. We were invited over to Japan. I went to Hokkaido because the Japanese had a subspecies of Eurasian otter, Lutra nippon, and it became extinct, and they were thinking of reintroducing them from some of the islands of the Hokkaido coastline that are now owned by the Russians. And in 2019, we went to Guyana to look at the giant otters. And although I really love otters, we were watching a whole group of giant otters, and then on the banks of the river, we saw this, a jaguar, which was amazing. In Tanzania, we did education projects with the fishermen and the schools, and we set up a team otter. The first one was obviously brought for the Isle of Skye, but we've got other ones in Scotland, and we've got team otter clubs now in Guyana, Montenegro, Laos, and that Ben will explain more about this as we go on. So thank you for listening, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Thanks, Paul. That was really good. If you just click the stop share, it'll be a red square at the bottom of your screen. It'll just go back to the, yeah, that's it. Thank you very much. That was very informative. If anyone has any questions about the rehab centre, or any rehab of otters for that matter, we do have Grace YOXON of the IOSF who isn't presenting but is here to answer questions. Should you have any other questions, could be directed to Paul, and any questions perhaps on Team Otter I can answer. I will be doing, for those that are attending the afternoon session, I'll be doing a small presentation on the Team Otter programme. We do have one question, which maybe Grace, you could answer. It's from Marie Mason or Masson. Apologies if I pronounced that wrong. The question is there a guidance for the release of rescued otters? Here in France, we have few cases of orphaned cubs per year, but there is still no concerted thought about how to release them.
Release is a difficult problem because one of the things is you've got to keep them for 12 to 15 months, as that's a natural age when they would go. But if you're keeping them in a rehab centre, you really have to make sure that you keep human contact to a minimum. That is the most important thing, because you cannot release a tame animal. So here we have just 1 or 2 people who do the feeding. And when they are released, the people disappear, and they don't associate people in general with food. The release site has to be chosen very carefully, so that There's obviously got halt availability. They're not going to come in contact with people. They've got a fish supply, and it won't be a problem in that sense. I think it's most important to check that you've got people who can keep an eye and do post-release monitoring. We always find that our otters demonstrate that they're ready to go by digging around the edge, and they get far more reclusive, and that's exactly what we want. When we go up, if somebody else has to feed for us, then they just won't come out. So as long as they've been rehabilitated, as long as they have been rehabilitated properly, they won't go up to people. There have been problems where people have released them and they've run up to people and they've had to be recaptured. And that really isn't good for the otter, for people. A tame otter is dangerous because you've got to bear in mind that they are carnivores. And as Paul said, they are strong animals. And we don't want people getting bitten. Paul didn't say that he was bitten quite a few years ago and ended up in hospital and has had repercussions ever since. So rehabilitation has got to be done really carefully so that it's the best interests of the otter, the best interests of the people, and you putting back a wild animal. I don't know if that helps with the question, but we just have these protocols where we, if possible, we receive otters from freshwater systems and the coast. If they're from an island, they go back to that island, such as Mull or Lewis or whatever. If they're freshwater ones, they go back into a freshwater system, and coastal ones go into a coastal system, because they do have different habits. Those in freshwater systems tend to be more nocturnal, although they are appearing more in the day now. And coastal ones are active on and off all through the day and night. And we found that through camera trapping. So choose your site carefully, release carefully, don't have lots of people around, and keep your site private.
Yeah, good. In answer to Heather Jessel, the presentation will be posted online at some point. We'll let you know where that is, and we'll email you all with the full presentation video. A question from Jane and Nigel. Again, this will be probably to Grace. Can you not use lactose-free milk from supermarkets rather than importing especially from the US?
Where we are, we can't get lactose-free milk in the supermarket, and I haven't actually tried it. I imagine it would work, but it's just a question of practicality from where we are.
Cool. A question from Teresa Mason to you, Paul. Do you think there is complacency about the otter population in Britain? You just need to unmute.
Yeah. I think there is complacency. We don't really know the true extent of the population in Great Britain. I mean, there's been some DNA work done on the river systems in England. There's Hans Crook's work on Shetland, where he estimated active holts with resident females and he could work out a population. I did the same on the Isle of Skye, but other than that, nobody really knows the population of otters. The figure that's banded about of 10,000 otters was just made up when a journalist asked somebody, what do you think the population was? And he came up with a figure of 10,000. So yes, there is complacency. If you think otters, the Eurasian otter in the wild should be living to 12, 13 years, it's only living to 5 and 6 because of pollutants. And if you think a female isn't sexually mature until she's 18 months and she has 2 cubs possibly every other year, it's really difficult to bring that population back. So again, yes, I think there is complacency, and we should do a lot more to research and look at the population in Great Britain.
Good answer, thank you. I think that's all the questions, unless I've missed any. If anyone has any final questions, I'll give you another 30 seconds or so to stick in a question, and if not, we will move on to the next presentation. I'll give a little introduction to the next presentation, and if there's no questions following that, then I will just carry on. So the next presentation will be presented by myself. I'm presenting on behalf of Padmanda Silva, who is the Asian Otter Conservation Network coordinator. Obviously, due to technical issues, Padma can't present, and she kindly put together a presentation on Asian otters, which I will present. Any questions about the Asian otters, I will happily answer, and Paul and Grace will also answer any questions too. And also the following three, Wu, Omar and Dung's presentations will probably answer some questions as well, as they're based in Asia and have expertise on various species and various habitats. A little introduction to Professor Padmanda Silva. Professor Padmanda Silva won a British scholarship to read for her PhD in freshwater biology at the Institute of Freshwater Biology in Windermere, United Kingdom. Padma has worked in otters since the early 1990s, and in 2001, she was appointed as the IOSF Asian Coordinator, and she is now also chair of the IOSF Asian Otter Conservation Network. Her main research interests are ecology and distribution of the otter, freshwater and estuarine ecology, mangrove ecology, ecology of aquatic organisms, and wetland pollution. Until her retirement, she was a senior professor of zoology in the University of Padmanda in Sri Lanka. She also taught MSc students in environmental science, biodiversity, ecotourism, environmental management at the Postgraduate Institute of Science. Padma is Chair Emeritus of the IUCN Otter Specialist Group and was chair of the group from 1994 to 1998. After her resignation from the chair, she continued to act as Asian coordinator for the group and was deputy chair. Padma has been very involved in the IOSF training workshops for otter research in Asia and has been instrumental in bringing to international attention the endangered species and the importance of conserving the otter species of the world. So as I said, will present on behalf. We have one. No, sorry, we don't have any questions. So I will present, and if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the questions and answer box, and I will answer them at the end. Thank you. So yeah, as I've given you an introduction to Padmanda Silva, who is the Asian coordinator of the IOSF and the Asian Otter Conservation Network. In this presentation, we are going to talk on 5 main things. It's a general introduction to the otter species that we have in Asia, the main threats that they face, otter awareness, the Asian Otter Network, and then a plea from Padma to finish at the end. So in Asia, there are 5 different species. Sea otter, which is found across from kind of northern Mexico, across the Pacific coasts to northern and eastern Russia. They are the only species of otter in Asia that are purely marine based and are also the heaviest species of otter anywhere in the world and can grow up to a weight of about 45 kilograms. They are classified as endangered in the red list because in the early 20th century, they were became nearly extinct due to the height of the fur trade in North America predominantly. Thankfully, since then, populations have slowly recovered, but haven't reached the levels that they were at the start of the fur trade. Smooth-coated otter is an otter that many of you, if you're based in Asia, will be well aware of. You can see in the more coloured map that their range was quite predominant, quite large in 1990, or believed to be. The red or the orange on the map indicates maybe extinct. The blue is rare. The green is fairly common, the pink is unknown, and the yellow is no information. As you can see, by 2014, although a lot of the 1990 map was maybe unknown, the range that they have has dropped quite significantly to mainly Southeast Asia and Southern Asia, with a small population, which Omar will talk about, in the Middle East. They are classified as vulnerable in the red list. There's the hairy-nosed otter, which is perhaps one of the rarest otters in the world. As you can see again, in 1990, they had quite an extensive range, or potential extensive range. By 2014, the range has dropped quite significantly again. They were thought to be extinct in 1998, but a small population was found in Thailand the following year, and since then populations have been found across various Southeast Asian nations. They are also, like the sea otter, classified as endangered. The Asian small-clawed otter, something we will talk about in a wee bit more detail in regards to the pet trade. Again, a large extensive range, although many of that was rare or unknown. In 1990 has since dropped to 2014. So since dropped in 2014 when kind of populations were last known. They obviously, as their name suggests, have small claws, which means their paws are almost like fingers, and they have high dexterity to kind of pick their food and use their hands like we use our hands. They are also the smallest otter of any otter in the world and grow up to a general size of about 90 centimeters. And the final species of otter, which Dr. Paul kind of covered early on, is the Eurasian otter. This is the only otter that we here in the Isle of Skye and in Scotland and Europe share with anyone that's kind of Asian based. They live as far west, as you can see, as the UK and Ireland and Portugal, to as far east as Eastern Asia. They are classified as near threatened, although much of their range, populations and information is not known. This is the CITES list for each of the otters. CITES is kind of the legal trade governing the Appendix 1 means they're highest protected. So the Eurasian otter, the small-clawed otter and the smooth-coated otter are CITES Appendix 1, which means they have the highest level of protection. The hairy-nosed otter and the sea otter, which are ironically are endangered, actually have a lesser level of protection. But this is only kind of protection if they are legally protected and enforcement is law is enforced. Sorry. So carry on there. So what we're just kind of thinking is we want to focus our attention on otters today, as this is World Otter Day, but also moving forward. Otters across Asia are declining, and then we want to think, are we doing enough to stop this? This is the kind of state of otter protection across Asia. They're often overlooked in conservation programs for kind of more bigger and maybe more famous fauna. They are such an important species as well to environmental health. As mentioned, they are semi-aquatic, so they live on both land and in water, and therefore need a healthy environment in both of these. And they are also a top predator, and therefore, if there is a presence of otters, there is a healthy and balanced environment, ecosystem underneath it. As mentioned, they are all kind of protected under international and local legislation, the CITES, but unfortunately, these laws are very rarely enforced. Many people are unaware that otters exist in their wetlands, and this is something that things like this and the workshops are helping to grow awareness of. And finally, it is important to emphasize just how important otters are, and again, raise awareness of this. What are the needs for otters and a healthy population? Well, they need healthy wetland habitats that are unpolluted with clean water. They need adequate vegetation so that they can shelter, groom, and rest. They need an abundance of prey species. Generally, 100 kilograms of prey biomass supports 1 kilogram of predator biomass. So if you have a healthy, thriving otter population, the chances are you have many different species underneath them that they are also helping control. And they also need easy access to land, to water from the land. The main threats kind of come into 5 different aspects. Wetland degradation, aspects such as pollution. There's forest degradation, such as habitat loss, removal of water quality, controlling riverbanks and stuff like that. There is the illegal hunting for skins, meat, or traditional medicine, the illegal pet trade, and finally, the depletion of food sources, such as overfishing, or again, pollution can lead to that too. This is a very complex diagram and it shows the complexity of wetland degradation and also wetland health. There are many factors that link to wetland degradation and many things we have to consider as we are kind of planning our conservation programs or environmental conservation programs. Aspects such as climate change, political factors, or agricultural activities are just three of many different aspects that link this. Wetland degradation can be aspects such as pollution, as shown in this picture. Forest degradation, the picture in the map in the top left corner shows in 1860 kind of the habitat of kind of the Asian continent in that age. The darker green shows forests, the lighter green shows grasslands, the pink shows croplands, and the blue kind of relates to any other habitat. As you can see, from 1860 to 2013, the amount of grasslands and forests has dropped quite significantly, and that has been replaced with things like croplands. And this is obviously a loss of habitat, not only for otters, but for many different animals that may use things like forests and need that for their safety and for their survival. Illegal trade of otters' skins. As mentioned, the otter skin is remarkable. They don't have a fat layer or a blubber layer as other sort of marine or water-based animals might have. And that's because when they come to land, they have to be equally as quick and mobile on land as they are in the water. Instead, they have incredibly thick fur, and the sea otter, which we mentioned before, actually has the thickest fur of any animal in the world, with about 250,000 hairs per square centimetre. The Eurasian otter, the otter that we have here in the UK and is found across a lot of Asia, has 50,000 hairs per square centimetre. And if you compare that to our own heads, we have about 200 hairs per square centimetre. So the otter's fur is incredibly thick and incredibly vital to its survival, and also can be detrimental to it, as it is kind of the diamond of the fur trade, and people want to catch them and unfortunately kill them for their fur. These are two pictures that I'll put up as well. 778 otter skins found in Tibet, and this is the one in the top right corner is 7 otters, including one of the incredibly rare hairy-nosed otter. As mentioned, it is believed that for every tiger skin found in the illegal trade, 10 otter skins found. And we all know how bad kind of the trade of tigers is, so we can understand how bad the trade of otters are too. They're also heavily used as pets and advertised and sale for social aspects such as social media. Japanese otter cafes, circuses are driving this. So we really encourage you, if you ever have the opportunity or you see pet otters on social media, do not share, do not like, and do not encourage this behavior. Unfortunately, mother otters are killed and cubs are stolen from the wild, and that is leading them to a decline. This is beginning to drive, and there are steps which we'll talk about later on that we are trying to do to help. Overfishing comes from many different factors, or a loss of prey can also be a part of overfishing. Overfishing, dynamite fishing, or simply sand mining or pollution affecting spawning areas can result in the lack of fish. Fish and otters have coexisted for millions of years, and it is simply not worth the otter killing all the fish. If the otters remove all the fish from their habitats, then they will unfortunately die as a result. So there's no reason for them to overfish their own habitats. The major needs for otter conservation in Asia moving forward. There's field surveys to get more data, otter surveys to also get more data on otters, awareness and education, establishment of otter networks, and again, research into other factors which affect otters, such as pollution, habitat loss, and anything other factors that might link to this. So we have our field training programs as the Otter Conservation Network and the IOSF to train participants in methods of otter surveying, to be able to identify different species of otters and also distinguish them from any other mammal that might be similar to them, to help with camera trapping techniques, so non-invasive methods of monitoring, community participation, and again, established networks, which we'll discuss more further on. These are some of the training programs that have been achieved over the previous years. As you can see, there's an extensive amount, and this is great, because the more we do, the better we'll get. IOSF took part in a field training survey in Indonesia. As you can see, there's grace of the IOSF, learning about different things such as holts, sprints, and other factors. Again, community participation is absolutely integral to this, as they are the ones that live alongside the otters and therefore are the ones that are going to be closest to helping them help conserve them. So raising awareness and raising the profile of otters within local communities is just as important. Again, in 2018, we had a field training survey in Laos where we actually found evidence of the rarer Eurasian otter, which is great. The outcomes of these kind of workshops and training programs are things such as over 150 young biologists, foresters, and field assistants have been trained to look for otters. Networks which ensure ensure less duplication of efforts, ensures that information is passed across one another, and ensures that we all know kind of the common goal that we're working for. It's an easy way to share information quickly, and also any potential rescue operations that need to be done for pet otters or any otters that are in need. Most of the trainees are using their experience obtained in their respective countries and helping to grow the knowledge again. We also have advisors declaring wildlife reserves, including otter habitats, establishing wildlife rescue centres, etc. Conducting community outreach programs, which again, as I've mentioned, is so important as communities live alongside the otters and they're the ones that will interact with the otters most. So reducing any potential conflicts is really important too. And then just continuing to survey for otters in all the Asian countries and getting more of an understanding of what otters we have. It's also really important to educate, as I've mentioned a few times throughout kind of this presentation, about their importance as the one thing that we can really kind of educate most on, that otters aren't detrimental to local communities and are actually really important and an important factor in keeping everything balanced. Things such as their natural history, their ecology, their distribution, and conservation issues. If we can find a way to preserve and conserve otters successfully, then we will find a way to preserve and conserve many different species as well. As mentioned, they are so important and they are an indicator of a healthy environment. It's important when you're doing community education to think of the target groups that you're focusing on. Are you wanting to focus on adults? Or are you wanting to focus on children? Both are just as important as each other. It's a team otter program, which I, as in Ben, am coordinator of, and this is kind of a program which I'll talk more about in the second webinar of the day, is about kind of re-engaging children with nature and growing a passion that will last a lifetime. They are kind of the parents of tomorrow's world, and if we can help them think about otters, wetlands, and the environment, then things will start looking up for otters moving forward. There's different strategies in which you can use to help children. Aspects such as field days, looking for otters and signs, colouring, artwork competitions, essay competitions, quizzes. There's many different things, and each kind of aspect is better for each area. It's completely up to you what you can achieve. Here is an example of awareness program in Cambodia, where children were encouraged to draw wetland habitats and balanced environments too. Again, Bangladesh, you can see there's in the top right corner, there's a picture of someone kind of playing a game to try and get the otter back to the fish. There's art competitions, and again, it's growing the love for otters and wetland habitats too, which is equally as important. This is a pilot project which was actually kind of launched by Padma herself, and it was using storybooks for otters, using otters as kind of the main character for children, other aspects such as jigsaw puzzles and games, and important to have free distribution so that any children and any individuals or communities that can't get access to it have access to it, and we can grow our kind of awareness of that too. Again, like I mentioned, we're targeting this example, we're targeting children and junior school children from 8 to 10. Different, these are all kind of worked with by Padma, in particular these four, Padma wrote these to help children kind of engage with otters and have a different story, and they can be kind of the heroes of the book. And it's a great way to kind of raise awareness and make children fall in love with otters. They are getting distributed India and to Sri Lanka too. A really good positive story from that one too. So the main mission of the African Otter Conservation Network is to encourage otter workers throughout Asia, the Asian continent, to work together, to increase our knowledge, gather more data, create more awareness of all the species, and work with local governments to increase protection of otters and their habitats. And the final world, there are many countries started their own networks, such as Nepal, Indonesia, Pakistan, and many others. We want to bring about the quick sharing of research information so there are no duplication of efforts. And at the end of the year, anyone is welcome to submit a report, or well, the African Otter Conservation Network submits a report to the IOSF journal, which is actually out today as well. So this is a final plea from PADMA and from the IOSF, and that is to say no to pet otters. And finally, and most importantly, let's all join hands to work more and more to conserve otters in Asia. Thank you for listening, and should you have any questions, then please let me know. Just a few acknowledgements. There's a thanks to the IOSF and thanks to the Otter Friends worldwide for continuous support. And finally, a major thanks to all of you for joining us today. Thank you. If you have any questions, I will flick through and answer them on Padma's behalf, or I will pass them over to Grace and Paul as well. So, okay, so questions. Hi, general question. I will leave that question till the end when we're coming together with everyone. The otters hunting. Okay. Kamal Hassan says the otters hunting or killed in Iraq is cause for hunting fish, not for its skin. And finally, Theresa Mason has asked, how have the COVID restrictions, the restrictions of COVID impacted this work and the pet trade? Theresa, I think that question might best be served being answered by Dung and the Save Vietnam's Wildlife. They are actively involved, obviously, in Vietnam, and they might be able to answer that. So we'll ask that question after they've done their presentation. I will also have a quick look through the chats to see if there's any questions. Thank you for all the comments. Doesn't look like there's any more questions. Unless anyone has any questions, then please feel free to put them up. And I will. Yes, Grace?
I just wanted to reply to Theresa about the COVID stuff, in that one of the reasons Padma can't be here is due to COVID. Sri Lanka's gone into lockdown and she couldn't get she was going to do a video presentation, but she couldn't get this done, so which is why Ben's had to do it. And it has affected World Otter Day to a certain extent, in that the more physical and practical projects haven't been able to go ahead. So it's been largely social media and webinars. So COVID has had an effect. And as Ben said, we'll ask Save Vietnam's Wildlife more about the effect on pet trade.
Yeah, that's great. Has anyone got any further questions for myself or of Grace to kind of answer on behalf of Padma? I'd be happy to answer any further questions that you might have. Great. Okay, so it looks as though we may have lost Omar. I know he was having a bit of difficulty with his internet. We'll try and get him back online. I'll just have a little look, see if he's there. Sorry, just give me a moment. He's not actually there at the moment. So if possible, we will pass over to Dung Nguyen of Save Vietnam's Wildlife. I will give a little introduction for you. So Save Vietnam's Wildlife is a national non-profit organization in Vietnam that was founded on the critical need for effective solutions to find a secure future for all of Vietnam's wildlife. Dung Nguyen is working as a director's assistant to follow the progress of projects at Save Vietnam's Wildlife that Save Vietnam's Wildlife is working on, and also works as a coordinator among the team to connect, sharing info with donors and fundraising as well. She used to be communication officer at Save Vietnam's Wildlife for around 1 year before becoming the assistant. Oh, sorry, Dung. Omar's actually, we'll carry on with Dung presenting, and then once we'll do Omar after that. Oh, no, Omar's back.
Okay, thank you, Ben.
My pleasure.
And thank you for your presentation. Hello, everyone. Yeah, I would like to share my screen first. Okay. I sharing. Okay. Happen, can you share my screen? Happen, can you allow me to share my screen?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, you should be able to. Just give me 1 minute.
Hello, everyone. Is anyone hearing?
Does that work?
No, it's not work. I can share my screen.
Okay, just give me 2 seconds. I'll try and get it working. Withdraw co-host.
Okay, nice work. Okay.
Yeah, does that work okay? Yeah, that works.
Okay.
Thanks, Dung. Look forward to your presentation.
Yeah. First of all, nice to meet you all. Exactly. This presentation should be delivered by our headkeeper, but today he's on the duty to release otter back into the wild, which is quite far from our rescue center. So now I present on behalf of our headkeeper, Chuang. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask me, or if I cannot answer, I will transfer the question to him for answer to you later. And today I would like to share with you some information about the flight and interest of otter in Vietnam and some other activities that we are doing with otters, research, rescue, rehabilitation, and release otter. And here you see the map. Currently the population of otter in Vietnam is unknown. And these are maps that we from our research team about the 4 species otters in Vietnam: Eurasian otter, Asian small-claw otter, hairy-nosed otter, and smooth-coated otters. As you see the number in the map, number 1, 2, 3, and 4 is our current site that we are closely working on, mostly from the south of Vietnam. And currently, our research team is also collaborating with Hanoi University of Science and another University of Thailand, joining project in chasing originals of otters in trace in Southeast Asia. And with the funds from the National Geographic, we have a research about otters in 2 national parks in the south of Vietnam, U Minh Thượng and U Minh Hạ. And in here since 2019, we put over 70 camera traps in here, and we see a lot about, and based on the records that we have, we record a lot of the pictures of the otters in the wild in these 2 national parks. And here is the one of the video that we got from camera traps about the otter in U Minh Thượng, the wild otters. And based on the result that we collect from the camera traps, we also see that there was sympatric population of hairy-nosed otter and small claw otters in both these 2 national parks. As my band and Paul sharing about the threat of otters, and we also have encounter about the otter threats like illegal pet trade, fur trade, habitat destruction, reduction in available prey, and conflict with humans. Among them in Vietnam, illegal pet trade is the biggest threat to the otter. As you already know, the otter is so cute, and a lot of people want to keep otter as a pet. However, in Vietnam right now, all the otter are listed in different category in IUCN Red List, but in Vietnam they are all listed in 1B group by degree number 6 of the Vietnamese government law. And it means that if any activities of keeping otter or trade otter illegally will be punished, maybe money or put in prison. And here is one our research about we conducted interview for 400 local people in 2 national parks in the south of Vietnam. And among them, they are the results show that over the 55% of interview claim that otters are main issues that's conflict between humans and wildlife compared with other wildlife animals. Because of they mostly complain that their otters was come to their pond and stone their fish or shrimp from the local ponds. And because of that, we are now currently doing rescue and rehabilitate and release animals. Exactly, we start rescuing the otters in 2019. Since then, we rescued 32 otters and 26 of them from illegal wildlife trades that we received a call from the police, and the police help us to catch the crimes and then deliver the otters to our rescue center. For the rest of animals, in the 6 otter, we are voluntarily handed over by local peoples because we share a lot of information about the otters. Keeping otter as pet is illegal and maybe punished by money or put in prison. So a lot of people after they watching, they see the information, so they call us and want to deliver the otters for us. Or some of cases that when the people keep the otters in their house when it's getting older and it's very naughty and destroy their furniture, so they cannot keep otters anymore. So then they also call us for receive the otters. And the largest rescue with otter that we rescued is 50 babies otter in December of 2019. And of course, our keeper have to be an accidental mother and the father of the baby. And here is the little videos that how we feed the baby. And this oyster was funded by was funded and donated a amount of money for raising them, and most of this otter was released back into the wild already. Yeah. And as you already know, it takes a lot of time to have the otters can be released back into the wild from the pet trade. For some of them, when they come to our center, they also, after quarantine period, they won't be put in enclosure with our enrichment. Like as you see in the pictures, that we create a lot of toys for otters for beside of remain their natural behaviors, is also train them and make sure they can survive in the wild. Here, it depends on the seasons, because in Vietnam, in the summer it's quite hot. So we also make some kind of ice cream for the otters to make them like more active and more enjoy eating. And another activity that we do is pairing otters, because we do not, as you already know, otter living in groups, not living in individuals. So to ensure they can't be they can be live in the wild, with groups. So we have to pairing they first in the center, in the rescue center, and then after rehabilitate them. And so if they live in group, it's okay. So we can release them back into the wild. However, in some cases, the otter, they're not live friendly with each other. They fight each other. So we have to think another way to separate them with another group or group them with other individuals. You see here is the 3 otters that in the previous slide, you see a baby otter, right? And these pictures are some of the otters that we read. They getting older, they bigger, they grow. Here's the size before they can be released. And in here, in their during rehabilitations, we also train them the hunting skills. We put a lot of live fish, living fish, for them to catch in the small pond or small artificial ponds that we make for them. They are very active, and the food they consume is too much. We have to feed their otters 3 meals per day. And currently, we have a semi-wide area which we create a pond, and it's quite similar to their natural habitat. The otter have to be put in here for training before they release, to make sure they can survive in the wild. In here, we not put much up, we not interact too much, to let the otter to be familiar with the wild environment by themselves, and to make sure they will not get close with human, because as you already know, the otter is very familiar with human. If they are contacted with human a lot, so when they be released back into the wild, they maybe come close with the hunters if the hunter in the forest. And they also pass simple health check before they release back into the wild. It is also important step to make sure that the disease from otters could not be transferred to the otters or other wild animals in the wild. However, currently after release, we do not we did not track the animals, did not track otters after being released, because first of all, as we find the implant tools for that can be injected under the skin of the otters is quite big compared to the size of otter. So to ensure the welfare for the otters, we currently could not implant the equipment for but for the other animals like pangolins, we use the transmitters and do radio tracking for the pangolins. But for the otters, because of their welfare, for animals' welfare, we did not find the best solution for the otters. So, however, before release, the research team have to find or research about the best habitats that we can release otters. And here's either one of the pictures that our head keeper chose if release 2 otters back into the wild. Among of 32 otters we rescue, we released 21 otters back into the wild. Some of them, there are 2 otters are currently in our rescue center because they was hand raised, they was pet, and they're very familiar with people. So we cannot release back into the wild because now if they see the human, they are very excited. they just want to make joys and do not want to stay away from people. So now currently they are still in our rescue center. But for the rest, because they got some die here or some problems, some they got sick, they cannot pass the they cannot pass and cannot survive. So we have to we sorry to have to keep them in the fridge. And for raising awareness in Vietnam, currently we are operating rescue center, which will show information about the otters and the status and about the threat to sharing all the visitors coming to our rescue center. Besides of sharing our information of rescuing otters in our website, social channels like Facebook, YouTube, or some other channels. And currently we also implementing or conducting the mobile tents that we mobile tents with the visitors from we give mobile tents to the big cities and share, and inside the tents we will have the creative media, films, videos, and pictures about the otters and also other animals in Vietnam, wildlife in Vietnam like pangolins. So the audience can have a chance to go and see and understand more about the otters particularly and the wild animals in Vietnam in general. And yeah, that's sounds for my presentation. If you have any question, just feel free to give me the questions or contact me. I'm sorry if some point I'm not clearly to share with you. But I hope you can get my main point of sharing. Yeah.
Hi, Dung. That was a really good presentation, and I think it really emphasised the work you're doing and the importance of not only rehabbing otters but also stopping the pet trade at source. I'll see if we've got any questions. You could just stop sharing your screen whenever you're ready.
Okay.
Thank you so much again for choosing to share your work with us and also the work you're doing. Just going back to one of the questions from earlier, has COVID-19 and the coronavirus had any impact not only on your work but also on the pet trade?
In Vietnam currently pet trade is like underground activities, and because of COVID-19, so a lot of activities from they selling their pets, of selling otters and other animals, also wild animals, on the internet. And is at the beginning of the COVID-19 is affect a lot of our rescue because the social distancing rule from the government. So we are not able to rescue wild animals, yeah, and also otter ourselves. But now because and also we are big to save the otter and also other animals. We are connected with other rescue centers or national parks around Vietnam. Maybe if because we now located in the north of Vietnam, it's quite far from some other locations that have otters. So we also connect with other national parks that we can call for rescue. Maybe the otters cannot transfer to our rescue center, but for the other national park and rescue center. And so, yes, yeah.
Thank you. Good answer. Just see if there's any more questions that people might have for you. There's one from Heidi Davis who asks, just let me have a quick read so I read it properly. What is the percentage of otters that do not survive after confiscation due to bad health, or how many are already found dead in kind of the pet trade?
As you see, we rescued 36 of them, and just the otters that there's the baby otter that we rescued. I will share with you. because it's come into our center when they was very young age, and they got died here. 2 or 3 of them got died here, so that is why we cannot save them. But for the rest, about 9 or 10 of them in the group of 15 otter we rescue, they were survived and they already released back into the wild. Yeah.
That's great. That's a good percentage as well, because we obviously have our rehab center here, and it's really difficult to kind of raise young otters. And unfortunately, it's important that everybody knows that sometimes they do die, and that is kind of the bigger result of the pet trade, is that they do die.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and that's why we have to try and stop it. That's the most important thing. There's another question. How can you say a bit more about how effective kind of like law enforcement is in regards to the illegal pet trade?
Yeah, we do a lot of advocacy activities. We work with the government and also the forestry department in Vietnam and also rangers. We to change the law. At least in 2019, our effort has paid. That we called for the government that maybe there are 4 species otters in Vietnam. Now they are all listed in one group, one big group. That if any illegal, if any activities of persons or organization that keep otters or trade otters illegally, they can be punished. Maybe money. The highest money for the individuals can be 30 around $86,000, and also maybe put in the prison up to 15 years.
No, that's good. That's good.
And also for other activities that we are doing right now is our anti-poaching team, where we have our own team. We work with rangers to save our release site. That means when we release animal, the animal won't be released back into the wild, where the site that we are protected. The well protected by our team. And and also that site also be researched carefully by our research team before we release animals back into the wild.
No, that's great. That's really good. And in your experience, a question for myself, in your experience over the last sort of few years, has the illegal trade of otters gone up or gone down or remained the same?
We cannot sure about this because currently we do not have a project about it. Okay. And also we do not have any fund for do activities. As you may know, we are not only saving otters, because otters just only carnivores. We are mainly focused on pangolins and all carnivores in Vietnam. And otter is the one of species that we are saving right now. So we currently just setting the camera traps to discover the population of the otters in Vietnam. In Vietnam, yeah.
Brilliant. That's good.
So but I will pass this question to our research team and send you later. Yeah.
Okay. Somebody's asked if you use radio tracking, but I think you mentioned in your presentation that you don't use radio tracking for the otters.
Yeah, because as you know, the tool or the equipment that you radio tracking to put the animals is quite big compared to for the pangolins, we can stick their transmitter tunes on the scale of the pangolins. But for the otters, we also search about their implant equipment that can inject under the skin of the otters, but it's too big compared to the otter, the size of the otters. So we have to put the priority. We have to prioritize the animals' welfare first for the otters. Absolutely. So that is why it's a very challenge for us to track the otters after being released. So we're just able to make sure that they are released back into the wild in the safe side that are well protected by our team.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. I agree. The welfare of the otters is definitely the most important thing for their release. I think that's all in regards to questions. Well, obviously, if anyone has any further questions for Dung or Save Vietnam's Wildlife, we will recap at the end after every talk. So in the meantime, Dung, thank you very much, and thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you all.
Can I just burst in a minute, Ben, before we go on?
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Great.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we
Yeah, I
can
can hear you.
I would like to just repeat what has been said about the implants. We totally agree that implants are not good for the animals. The thing I was really wanting to stress is some of the conditions that these pet animals come in. There's one in Indonesia that's just been received, and the owners have taken the teeth out so it can't bite. And the cruelty that is going on with some of these pet animals, you know, we've really got to do something to stop it.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Agree.
Thank you, Dung. And we'll speak
Thank
to you
you
at the
all.
end. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Nice to meet you all.
Okay, so next we thankfully have Omar back. So I'll give you a wee short sort of introduction to Omar. So Omar AL-SHEIKHLY is a senior ecologist and wildlife expert, a teacher at the University of Baghdad, and the technical director of the Iraqi Green Climate Organization, IGCO, a well-known NGO in Iraq. Iraq's representative of the SSC IUCN Otter Specialist Group, OSG, and the IOSF coordinator in the Middle East. He participated in the rehabilitation projects for the Mesopotamian marshes in southern Iraq in cooperation with several international institutes. He led the first wildlife survey in the marshes since 2003 and recorded the persistent occurrence of the elusive Maxwell's otter, endemic species to marshes of Iraq and Iran after it was thought to be extinct due to the drainage of the marshes by ex-Iraqi political regime. During his field expeditions in the marshes, he made several discoveries of the wildlife of Iraq. He has published various papers in the Otter Journal of IOSF, including one documenting first photographic evidence of the smooth-coated otter and Eurasian otter in Iraq since the 1950s, and in this year's issue on art as a conservation tool in the Mesopotamian marshes, southern Iraq, using Maxwell's otter as an example. So hello, Omar. We can't actually hear you at the moment. We can't hear you, Omar. You could maybe try unplug the headphones. Sometimes they can be an issue.
So do you hear me?
I can hear you now, yeah.
Okay. Sorry for this technical issues we are facing now for these days due to several security issues in Iraq. And thank you very much for your presentation. Good everybody. Good day, everybody. I am Omar AL-SHEIKHLY from the IGCO University of Baghdad in Iraq. I'm sharing now my presentation. Just is my screen shared? Is everybody's seen it?
Not at the moment. It might just be a bit behind. We'll just we can't see it at the moment.
So I'm just sharing the same.
Okay, it's coming through now. It should click through in a second now.
So it is okay now to start.
We're just waiting. I think there might be a slight lag There you go. Now it's come through now, so you can start. Thanks, Omar.
Yeah, thank you everybody for your attendance and giving the chance me to give a short presentation about the status of otters in Iraq in general, but precisely on the legendary Maxwell otter, its current distribution, major threats that the species is facing nowadays in Iraq, and the conservation work that we are doing nowadays in Iraq. And just to give a brief story about the naming of the Maxwell otter, in 1952, visit Iraq and a Scottish explorer and naturalist called Gavin Maxwell, who visited Iraq in aim to meet with Wilford Thesiger, this person, which is also a British explorer, and both are agreed to do an expedition in the desert of Arabia on camel's back. However, Gavin Maxwell stayed in the Basra province in southern Iraq on the major Basra railway station, which is like on the edge of the Gurna marshes. He made his first visit to the deep inside the Mesopotamian marshes, which is also known as the biblical Garden of Eden. It seems that the Gavin Maxwell, fascinated by the harmony between the nature and the local communities, and the unique natural landscape of this important area in the Middle East. So he cancelled the idea of doing an expedition with the whole Thesiger to the Arabia, and stayed in the Mesopotamian marshes to do more exploration work. Gavin Maxwell, during his several years working with the local communities, we'll call them the Marsh Arabs, or the indigenous inhabitants of the Iraqi marshes, he made a tight and strong relationship with those people. And in some literature, the Marsh Arab considered the Gavin Maxwell as one of their like relatives, and as most important international friend for them. So the Marsh Arabs gave Gavin Maxwell his first pup of otters, which were a female Eurasian otter. Gavin Maxwell named her as a Chahala. Chahala is after a name of a big city where Gavin Maxwell was working in the southern Iraq, in Hawaiza Marsh nowadays. Unfortunately, Chahala died after a few weeks due to unknown fever took it from the marshes. Later on, also another fisherman from Marsh Arab gave Gavin Maxwell another pup of otters, but that pup was unique by its fur color and size. And Gavin Maxwell named him Mijbil, which is the name of the fisherman that gave that pup to Maxwell. When Gavin Maxwell returned back to Scotland, he took Mijbil with him from South Iraq, where he examined by several zoologists, and then turned to be as the new subspecies of smooth-coated otter exhibiting in southern marshes of southern Iraq. And the full story for Gavin Maxwell was his otter, Mijbil, was highlighted in one of his main book, which is Ring of the Bright Water. And the full story was also highlighted by Gavin Young's books, Return to the Marshes. However, Gavin Maxwell and his faithful friend from South Iraq has established a great bond between human and wildlife, and I think it's just expressed as a good example of a relationship which is still exists nowadays in Scotland, on the shores of Scotland. The Iraqi marshes, it's a major and vast woodland occupying a huge area in 3 Iraqi provinces in southern Iraq. The area was at the end of the first Gulf War, and the second Gulf War was ditched and trained by the ex-political Iraqi regime. And it was considered the second environmental disaster declared by the United Nations Environmental Program. And these are 2 maps, the one taken in the end of the 70s, where the Iraqi marshes were looked like this, as floating villages on the surface of water. And by the end of the 90s, a size of between 15,000 to 20,000 square kilometer was shrunk to be only a small transboundary woodland in southeastern Iraq and western Iran, which was called Huwaiza. And that was a huge disaster, the change of the 5,000 age-old of aquatic ecosystem to a square and arid land. And these here are the two important images taken by the United States civilians satellite, showing that the purple red is the huge extent of the Mesopotamian marshes at the end of the 70s, and just turned to be like a small woodland in between Iraq and Iran at the end of 2000. And that's a huge area what changed to be like a desert and semi-desert area. There are two species of otter found in Iraq. The main one is the Eurasian otter, which is confined to the major streams of Tigris and Euphrates River Basin, and also the big lakes throughout the country. However, the most important one, which is endemic to Iraq, the endemic subspecies of smooth-coated otter, which is Lutrarchia Maxwell, after the Gavin Maxwell. After the drainage period, which is ended in 2003, we didn't have any visual documentation or any evidence of the persistence occurrence of otter in the Iraqi marshes. And actually, it was told that the most population of Iraq's smooth-coated otter has been pushed on the brink of the extinction. So we made a huge literature review about the available resources and records about the smooth-coated otter in Iraq, and we get to this one important one, which is showing like all the practices by Marsh Arab by collecting the otter cubs from the marshes, and that's evident by two cubs given to Gavin Maxwell during his visit to the marshes of Iraq. So we launched a major project to do a field expedition to understand whether both species of otter are still exist in the marshes or not. And we focus on to do field surveys in the major woodland in the southern Iraq. We started to do a huge and extensive interviews with the local communities, targeting local farmers, hunters, and other fishermen. Unfortunately, during the 2 years of our project, the results of the interviews was rather insufficient for us, and sadly, most of the local communities were indicating to us that they cannot see this animal anymore, and it's likely that this animal has pushed to the brink of extinction. And also, we established a good relationship and cooperation, as Gavin Maxwell did with the Marsh Arabs, and especially with the local community, especially those small individuals that stayed during the drainage period and the end of the First Gulf War. These people are the most important source to us, as they know every single details about the geography, logistics, and the other wildlife present in the Iraqi marshes usually after the drainage period. Also, we did based on a small part of fund and personal contributions, field surveys, especially night field surveys, to get any evidence of the persistence of Maxwell otter in the Iraqi marshes. And also, we found during like the 2014 and 2015 that is the best place to start is the aquaculture farms, where it was developed in several places within the marshland area. So we targeted the fish cages of the aquaculture as we thought it would be a potential place to see otters. We did our survey and then hopefully found the otter marks. That was a very good indicator of the persistence of otters in the Iraqi marshes. However, the exact species was unknown to us until we set our camera traps in cooperation with local communities. However, several of our camera traps were stolen by the local communities, and then we were forced to do another relationship with the local community to secure our camera traps as we let them understand the defining of otters is an important thing for their natural heritage and will get more prosperity for the marshland by encouraging international institutes and NGOs to work in the Iraqi marshes. The first images we found after resetting the camera traps on the shore of the Iraqi market, it was something pop up from the water. And that was the first confirmed record of the Eurasian Otter, Lutra in the Hammar and Central Marshes after 15 years of drainage and after the first Gulf War in the 90s. However, we still had to discover the legendary Maxwell otter. It was one of our main projects to discover this important species for Iraqi wildlife. However, I would like to emphasize that this project was generously funded by the National Geographic to the University of Pisa with my dearest colleague, Dr. Filippo Barmanira. We worked together to prove the persistence or occurrence of both otter species in the Iraqi marshes, and we have published several papers describing this important discoveries. The first photographic record of the Maxwell otter just recently obtained in 2017, where a adult female Maxwell otter was photographed in the transboundary woodland between Iraq and Iran. And it was considered the first documented record for the Maxwell otter in Iraq since its discovery by Gavin Maxwell. We named it as the Mitchell's grandson, as it descended from the Mitchell, the Maxwell otter of Iraq. Understanding by several field observations we made about this unique animal. It is very secretive, shy, and a very strong animal. It was able to endure the long period of drought and severe weather in the past 90s to survive in a small woodland with a very cryptic behavior, which gave a story of admirable of this amazing endurance behavior for these species. Also from few specimen, especially skin and scar specimen, that we were able to do a phylogenetic analysis for this spotted otter from the southern Iraqi marshes, and we found that the Lutra gave Spillata maxwelli has a allopatric endemicity to the Iraqi marshes, different rather than the other sympatric subspecies of Syndica and Spillata from the Asia. However, from our long period of field expeditions and field observations, we would identify several threats in the Iraqi marshes, which is majorly by poaching, trapping, and trafficking. From this image, we see that the old Sumerian, which is inhabited the area of the Garden of Eden 5,000 years ago, they use a spear-like fishing, which is by this instrument, by a long stick with sharp bracelet at the end. This instrument is unfortunately used to hunt otter whenever possible, and made a deep uncovered wound by otter, which let them die eventually. And in more recent years, the electrocution for otter was also established as the fishing methodology was changed dramatically from fishing net to electricity stakes and electricity generation, where large and huge waves of electricity pulse in the water. And when the otter came in encounter with these waves, they electrocuted, and then the people of the marsh Arab hit them by the spearing stakes. And that evident by several specimens taken and obtained during field expedition from the Iraqi marshes. Unfortunately, both species, Eurasian and the Maxwell otter. Also, the both otter species are targeted whenever and when possible, because the marsh Arabs consider them as main direct impact for their farms and aquaculture. So large adult individuals get killed by shotguns and by other rifles as soon as they get spotted around the fish cages. Also, the fish, so the otter pups collected from the wild to be raised as a domesticated animals, and also otters hang as a trophy in front of the marsh Arab doors to indicate that this person has successfully killed a rare otter inside the Iraqi marshes, which is a behavior that nowadays we are fighting everywhere in the Iraqi marshes. Also, otters are trapped whenever possible and presented in the local animal markets as everywhere in the Asia. Nowadays, most of the Iraqi pet collectors admire these animals and the other carnivores to be raised as the pets. Also, Maxwell otter, in our last paper, we indicated that a small, very small population of Maxwell otters survived in between Iraq and Iran. And the major impact on this population is the illegal hunting and trapping, which will put this population on the brink of extinction if not any outreach or any conservation work applied by the Iraq government. And also, in several cases, otter are drowned due to several huge impact of net fishing and electrocution by the Iraqi marsh Arabs, and most of adult otters, which is stranded in the fishing net, and then eventually drowned and died. As the case similarly to other wildlife in Iraq, the hunting and the species persecution is ongoing. Large number of wildlife are being persecuted in Iraqi marshes each year, especially like the endangered species like the marble duck. It's a vulnerable IUCN red list species, which is targeted during the breeding season to be consumed as food by marsh Arabs. A large number of migratory waterfowl now get poisons as a new technique for hunting by pesticide, and that give also another impact on local community health by posing a carcinogenic factor to their diet, as the hunter using the pesticide to hunt the wildfowl. Also, in other parts, the other key species like the vulnerable goitre gazelle, the pregnant female are chased by cars of all terrain in order to stealing their youngs, and these youngs are collected to be smuggled and taken to the neighboring Gulf states. And also the large carnivores like the huge predators, leopards, wolves, hyenas are targeted whenever possible by illegal hunters, which use benefit from the weak implementation of the hunting legislation to pursue their illegal quest. The other also important threat on the both otter population in Iraq, it was the severe droughts that the Iraqi marshes faced during the 5 past years, and the impact of the climate change. The water scarcity issues has been highlighted as the main important issue by the UNDP Iraq, and that caused by several climatic natural impacts beside the hydrological project on the Tigris and Euphrates upstream in Turkey with construction of the Eliso Dam. As a huge area is now being drought and dried, and the water level decreased to less than to the minimum levels. And when water decreased, the salinity increased and led to exterminate and large number of fish population, which is the main prey of otter survival, decreased as well. One of main approaches to do conservation work for the Eurasian and Maxwell otter in Iraq is to communicate with the local communities and let them understand that the conserving of these animals is a part of the natural heritage. Just like Gavin Maxwell did by communicating with them, the key element for conserving these species is get on the hand of the local communities. And also we did a lot of awareness and educational campaigns through our social media by doing like brochures, leaflets, and video programs about the importance of the both otter species of the Iraqi marshes and how let the Iraqi government work to conserve them in cooperation with local communities. And that is part of our conservation work that we did since 2003, and as soon as the rehabilitation program of the Iraqi marshland started. Nowadays, most of the Iraqi understand the importance of these animals to the wildlife of Iraq as the most bio indicator for the good process of rehabilitation of the Iraqi marshes. I would like to thank my team of senior scientists and postgraduate students who devoted their times to study and monitoring the endangered biota of the Iraqi marshes in order to meet our goal that to give our further generation a better respect to indigenous wildlife of Iraq, where both are living together. Thank you very much for your support.
Thank you, Omar. That was a fascinating talk and shows the complexities of kind of otter conservation and wildlife conservation that kind of every area has to deal with. If you want it, yeah. Just a couple of questions that we have. There's one from Marie Mason that says, I'm sorry if this is explained in the presentation. Do you have a precise survey technique or protocol in the marshes? Here in France, we use IUCN standard protocol, but it is more adapted for riverside surveys. And we have some large wetlands and marshes where we cannot use this protocol. So looking for feedback.
That actually, it's a good question that used by our surveying technique that we did just recently to estimate the Maxwell otter population in the Huwaiza Marsh. We used as the marshland is a monotonic habitat and it's quite different than the river system. We used 500 meter as a transect survey to do to find the species abundance through distance sampling, and we get as a result about 900 individual of Maxwell otter are still survive in that precise area. So we use the same IUCN standard with a rather slight modification.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's a just a question from myself. I know you covered that there's a lot of sort of issues in relation to trade and all wildlife, not just otters, but in your experience in your years working with otters, has community perceptions changed for the positive towards otters, or is it kind of the same as it always has been?
Do you think do you asking for the changing of the otter's behavior to than its previous status?
No, like communities. Have communities changed their sort of interest towards otters?
We don't have any like quantitative measures to understand the impact of local communities. But basing on our surveys on the social media and the local responses for interviews with local communities, we believe that the knowledge regarding the conservation of otters in Iraq just raised than before due to the advocacy program that we are doing.
Yeah, that's good. I think something we've gathered from all presentations is how important it is to raise awareness and work with local communities.
Now it is the most important approach, at least for the Iraqi marshes, is to doing an intensive awareness program, because the otters now living inside the marsh Arabs' backyard. So the marsh Arabs are the most responsible people to preserve them.
Absolutely, yeah. Another question is, do you hope for any attitude changes in the future and perhaps any habitat restoration to help the population recover?
I would suggest that the hope it's always exists since 2003 by giving the otter another chance to survive. but the recent circumstances, especially the climate change, the water crisis, and the shortage water budget for the Tigris and Euphrates River basin, it will give us another challenge. That how we can protect these unique species, not only for the two otter species, but all the aquatic biota in general of the Iraqi market.
Absolutely.
So that will be another challenge for us.
Yeah, absolutely. There's just a comment from Filippo Barbanera who says, I think you know him. I would like to thank Omar for his excellent presentation. He is doing a very good job for otters and much more in Iraq. I may add that together with him, we also made a genetic ID of Maxwelli otter holotype resident in the Natural History Museum of London and found perfect correspondence with those found in the otters now living in the Central Marshes. We're heading to do more with Omar, relying on new non-invasively collective samples and using other genetic markers. So that's quite interesting that the genetics of the current otters are the same as the genetics of the otters previous. So that's great.
By that we called it like a Mitchell's grandson, because we know it's a descendant of the Mitchell grandson. Yeah, I would like also from here, if you allow me, that I would like to thank Dr. Filippo Barbanera from University of Italy, Pisa. He was very supportive to our work, and even I since never met him before, but since 2013 we did a lot of the conservation work of the Maxwell otter and the Iraqi market. And I am very sincerely grateful to his support to the Iraqi wildlife.
Yeah, brilliant. One final question before we move on to our final presentation is from Heather, who asks, what is the biggest challenge your team faces in making progress in your work?
Actually, there are two main challenges that we are facing to do the field work in Iraq. Is the lack of funds, that most of the fund goes to build the destroyed country infrastructure, and the most of the fund goes to do in the industry and the agro development project. So we depend independently on the outside fund from other countries. The other issue is the sometimes we face security issues inside the marshes that prevent our work to be conducted very well, and that issue should be solved politically by the Iraqi government.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Omar, for your fascinating presentation.
You're welcome. So thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you everybody for attending.
Thank you. My pleasure. Our pleasure. So we move on to our final presentation, which will be presented by Woo Chi Young. Just a little introduction to Woo before I'll hand over to him. Woo is working as a wildlife conservation officer for the Malaysian Nature Society, with past experiences on assisting various wildlife conservation projects in Malaysia and with the Malaysian Nature Society, such as hornbill and water birds. He is currently leading the MNS Otter project, focusing on the coastal and urban wild otters through ecological research, communities, multi-stakeholder works, and documenting otter-human conflict. He graduated from the University of Malaysia Sarawak with a degree in animal resource science and management. Currently, he is undergoing his MSc studies in Sunway University with the research into distribution and special niche partitioning among 3 sympatric otter species along the Selangor coastline on peninsular Malaysia. Good morning and good evening to yourself, Wu. I will pass it over to you, and we look forward to your presentation.
Hi, thank you, Ben. So let me share my screen first.
Yeah, that's grand.
All right, just check whether my voice can be heard clearly and my slide is on.
Yeah, we can see you and hear you.
All right, okay. So thank you so much for International Otter Survival Fund for inviting us to present about our very new established otter works in Malaysia, and great presentation from the previous speakers. I hope my presentation can continue the momentum. And I'm glad to see a lot of participants still hanging on here until the last of this webinar. So my name is Wu from Malaysian Nature Society. I'm working as a wildlife conservation officer. I'm also a member of the Malaysian Otter Network, a very new established network in Malaysia here. So today I'm going to give you some insight into our currently preliminary works on otter in Kuala Selangor, and also including some information that we get for the hairy-nosed otter, and also the work of the Malaysian Otter Network. So Malaysian Nature Society is the oldest environmental NGO in Malaysia. We are also the membership NGO. So in Malaysia, we have branches in all the states, which are run by volunteers. They are public who has passion in nature. And also, I'm from the secretariat team. And in MNS, we have conservation division, education, and membership division. So I'm from the conservation division. In conservation division, we have focus on habitats, which are categorized as forest, wetland, and marine. And then we have 6 focus species. We deal with indigenous people and also local communities. And also we work in terms of policy with governments. And in MNS, as we can see just now in the previous slide, one of our pillars is wetland conservation. So currently in wetland conservation, we have water birds and also firefly project to strengthen this wetland conservation as a pillar in MNS. And we have also education part, which is we have the wetland education centers, the Kuala Selangor Nature Park, Eco Care, and Environmental Interpretive Center, which all these 3 centers are mainly focused on educating the people and public about mangrove forests and replanting. And every year we will celebrate major events like World Wetland Day, Festival of Wings, and also World Firefly Day as a SEPA program. And I think this is well explained in Dr. Paul's slides, which we have, and also PADMA. We have these 5 species in Asia. And in Malaysia, we are fortunate to have 4 of them, the 4 species. 3 of them are globally threatened species, which we still have records of them in Malaysia here. For the Eurasian otter, our last sightings in Malaysia here is 2015. Up until now, we actually has not any sightings information about them. And of course, one of the major point in my presentation today is going towards the hairy-nosed otter. So by looking at the hairy-nosed otter, as we know, it's the rarest otter species in the world. And in the 90s, we have actually records of hairy-nosed otter in few locations of Malaysia. Notably, we have in Kuala Selangor and also along in other regions of Selangor, which is the Klang area. And in 2010s, it's come with a surprise news that the hairy-nosed otter is rediscovered in Sabah. And then subsequently, we have very few sightings of them, especially in few locations that is, we thought that hairy-nosed otter is confined to peat swamp, but then we have this hairy-nosed otter in few other habitat types. For example, at the center here, Ulu Muda Forest Reserve is a Dipterocarp forest habitat. And then latest information here is in 2020, last year, we have another hairy-nosed firm in Kinabatangan, Sabah. So not only I will present about otters in Kuala Selangor, but also I would like to give a general status, updated status and overview of otters in Malaysia. So currently the main threats is not a stranger to us. All these threats not only targeting the otters, but actually general all the wildlife. But there are 2 threats that I would like to highlight, which is the otter trade and also otter-human conflict, which is happening now in Malaysia here. So for the otter trade, we are starting to get such information about this otter trade very recently in these 2 years. So in 2020, we got more of the public actually report to us about Asian small-claw otter in a housing area. It was coincidentally that we actually celebrate World Otter Day, and this is reported during May at the time also. So we hope that this is kind of giving some very positive news and positive response that World Otter Day actually raised awareness to the public in Malaysia. And this year, in February, we actually received a report also from public that someone actually threw an otter pup into a ditch. Yeah, experience. And fortunately, the public actually rescued it and then handed it to us. It's a small photo of it. And then we handed it to the authorities. which is Dr. Fazil from Department of Wildlife, he also a board member. After that, the government actually received more confiscated of otters, which is I show at the right side here, small claw and also smooth-coated otter this year. But there's also an old problem between otters and also local people, mainly aquaculture farmers and also fishermen along the coastline. So I see a lot of nice picture of otter in previous presentation. So my presentation is going to show some not really quite unpleasant photos, so be prepared. So this is one case in 2019 that an otter actually being killed and hung by a fish breeder. So according to the news reported that the farmer actually do it this way to actually give a warning sign to the other otters not to come in to his fish farm. And another news in the same year as well, 2019, we have a group of otters being poisoned. So both of these news, the species as the victim is the smooth-coated otter. And in terms of protection status in Malaysia here, we have 3 different wildlife laws that is being practiced in Malaysia here. So in Peninsular Malaysia or the West Malaysia, otters is totally protected, which means any killing is prohibited or keeping is prohibited. But in terms of Sabah and Sarawak, which is the East Malaysia, is only otter is only categorized as protected status, which means you can keep, you can kill, provided you have a permit from the authorities. So then MNS actually see that this is a good opportunity for us to strengthen our wetland conservation work for after a few years. And we thought that we could actually put otters as one of the species family in MNS. So in 2019, this project has been established to actually strengthen our wetland conservation in MNS and in overall Malaysia as well, because we have branches in all the states and also support the branches. Our project is quite overall, which our focus is, as stated in this slide, range from research and then training the local people, SEPA programs, habitat conservation. It's just one thing that we haven't do is the rehab we introduced, because enforcement and also rehab we introduced part is more on government agency. But we are actually working with them on this. And we are also partners of the IUCN Otter Specialist Group and also International Otter Survival Fund. So we are a very newly established project in 2019. So currently we have only one focus area currently in our project, which is the North Central Selangor coast, in the coastline of. So this coastline is located in the Selangor state, the most developed state in Malaysia, and this North Central Selangor coast is also important birds and biodiversity area recognized as BirdLife International. So at the center of this coastline, our base is the Kuala Selangor Nature Park. As I mentioned before, this is one of the education center for us. So KSMP is currently managed by MNS on behalf of government. And Kuala Selangor, which is the center part of the coastline, is famous for a lot of wildlife, actually a lot of wildlife elements. For example, Selangor, the silver langur, and also firefly watching. And it's a very historical place with a lot of historical buildings. And of course, if you come to Kuala Selangor, you will not go back without eating seafood. And KSMP has been recognized as the Jew of Kuala Selangor because all the wildlife is concentrated there. So I will not go through very briefly about how we formed this KSMP, but it was previously a mangrove forest. But then the government actually want to clear it, and they did clear, and then it's for prawn farming and also golf course. But then it is unsuccessful as well as salt pans. So the time MNS members see the potential of this land, and they actually lobby with government. Fortunately, government actually agreed with us to establish this as a nature reserve and hand it over to MNS to manage it. And this is the first part managed by NGO in Malaysia. So this is an aerial view of how KSMP look like. So KSMP is comprised of 3 different habitats: the mangrove belt, the secondary forest, and this artificial tidal lagoon, or is or can be known as artificial lake. So this is a river mouth, which is known as Selangor River. So this lake is one of the achievement that we've done, because that time MNS member actually worked together to rehabilitate this whole lake and become original ideas for a high tide routes for water birds. And then because of tree planting program and also seed dispersal by the primates and birds, it become more concentrated with mangrove trees. And here's a canal that run through the park. And then we have previously also have a breeding program for milky stock here. And this is a water gate that links the Selangor River into the lake, and it's actually a tidal, because the water is always in flux. There's a water influx here. So we have published a few books about KSMP, and in the books we will not miss out one of the fame of KSMP, which is the otter. So far in the book, we mentioned about the smooth-coated otters, because it's the most commonly seen in the park and all over the Malaysia as well. So my first study and encounter of otters is actually in KSMP. So I did a very brief and general study about the otters in the park. So I set up 3 camera traps around the lake at 3 specific locations, because we know these 3 locations is where the otters are active. And this whole area is the boundary of the park, is about 296 hectares. And as you know, this is one of the signboard in the park, which the star here is we know the otter way. So we know the otter actually constantly come in and go out from the lake. And the brown color is the main track for visitors to come in and walk around the lake. So surprisingly, with so many people and tourists actually walk around the lake, the otters still prefer to actually deposit spring on the walking band or the main track. And on the left here, you can see there's a wide spread of spring all over. This is at near the water gate. And then so we set up the camera trap facing the latrine side. And also we also surveyed along the canal, and not surprisingly, actually they also deposit spring along the canal. And so far in the lake, the spring that we encounter, we found that they eat fish, crab, prawn, snake, and also we found some jelly-like spring. And also in the lake, because it's a muddy area, so you can easily see otter footprint. So it serves as a very good education purpose for visitors and for students actually come in to actually experience the unique features of otters. So of course, through camera trap, we managed to capture smooth-coated otter. So here are some of the, just a moment. So here's one of the camera trap. So from the camera trap, we able to see they are actually juvenile. So this show a good signs that the otters are actually breeding. But we are not sure whether they are actually they are reside in this park or actually out of this park, the boundary. And this is also a group of otter family rolling on the ground. So here is because this is near the coastline, so the otters are constantly seen to groom and roll on the sand because they are actually a freshwater otter. They are not marine otter or staying in the marine habitat. So they actually clean the fur, clean away the saltwater content. And then because we kind of know that there might be 2 species of otters in the park, but we never have a footage of the small claw otter in the park or even confirm. And through camera trap, we are very glad to actually finally capture and confirm there are 2 species of otters in KSMP. So here is one group of small claw otter. This is the only small claw otter that so far we got it in daylight time in the park. And also we got a small claw otter catching a crab. So those 3 camera trap location actually is a sympatric, where actually the smooth-coated otter and also the small-clawed otter deposit spray at the exactly same latrine site. So through the camera trap, we do some simple analysis to see what is the active time of both of these species. It's clearly seen that the Asian small-claw is more towards nocturnal behavior, but the smooth-coated otter is more generally active, active throughout the day and night. But you can see that from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. there is a decrease of activity because this is the time where actually we open to visitors. And also some behavior where smooth-coated otter mostly seem to be crossing in and out of the lagoon. We think that it could be because of the water gate, there's an influx of fishes coming in and out, but the small-clawed actually can catch their crab out of the lake and along the mangrove belt. And surprise number 2. So here is more of the video, just a very small clip. And with the size, we can confirm it's not small claw. So we thought that it could be a smooth-coated otter. But then when I pause and play to see whether we can see some features more clearly, and it's kind of, we can see that it's a very blurrish white color lining under the mouth part. So I sent these videos and pictures to IUCN Otter Specialist Group, and few experts have come back to me and they say that based on the movement and the features and using Photoshop to make it clearer, it could be seen that the white color is very distinguished. So then you can confirm that this is the herring-nosed otter in KSMP. So we have 3 species of otters in KSMP, but this is the only footage that we have so far. But historically, in Kuala Selangor, there are herring-nosed otter. So in 2015, there's a roadkill of herring-nosed otter, but this is at the North Selangor Peace-One Forest, not far from KSMP. And in 2020, last year, we also got local people actually reported to us that he's seen a very unusual otters with the white color lips, chin, and the parts. So he called me up, and then we go there and collect the carcass, and we close up to the nose part. We confirm this is another herring-nosed otter near the Peace-One Forest as well. So as you can see from the map here, this is the North Selangor Peace-One Forest, and KSMP is here. So there's a river that links from the forest up until the coastal area, and this is the Selangor River that I have shown in the area view just now. So in 2020, we able to actually expand our survey area with funds secure, and I done a transect along the mangrove forest in Kuala Selangor coastline. So it's a very preliminary study to see whether we walk the transect, whether we can detect any signs of otter, and also so this is our result from three forest reserve, and also putting up camera traps. And this is the one that this forest is located opposite of KSMP, the Banjano Forest Reserve. So this whole coastline has been developed rapidly with especially aquaculture farm, oil palm plantation, and also housing areas. So this whole coastline has been developed, and mangrove forest has been actually lost quite a rapid pace, and there are fragmented remnants of mangrove forest left along the coastline. So opposite KSMP still has the remaining of the last large intact forest reserve. And at this site, we walk along the bund and we found that there are 80 latrine sites along the whole bund road. And we have 2 species otters through camera trap confirmed. And also we document threats during this survey. And also we have roadkill of smooth-coated otter in one of the highway in the Kuala Selangor, surrounded by oil palm plantation. And all these otter data and otter project is actually contribute to one of the main purpose, which is habitat conservation. We are pushing KSMP to be recognized as a Ramsar site in order to actually to lock the government's commitments in preserving the mangrove forest and possibly actually duplicate to other forest reserve, mangrove forest reserve along the coastline. So we have established the M&S Ramsar School. We have organized KSMP for Ramsar BioBlitz. And also we have published a book, KSMP for Ramza. And this is still under process, ongoing. And currently, our ongoing efforts is we will expand our survey along the whole coastline, not just Kuala Selangor, but also from the north part of this Selangor coastline and up until the central part, through a very systematic study, breed cells and transects. And then we're also looking at the otter-human conflict, interview with the aquaculture farm people and fishermen, and training a group of local people to actually monitor and survey for otters. And for my master study, now I'm involving with non-invasive strain analysis and organize workshop to engage with public people. And out of the topic is we also have otters in KL, so we are initiating urban otter project. So a very big step forward is we have established the Malaysian Otter Network, which we have 7 professionals from all over Malaysia to actually come and join the efforts. They are the people who directly research on otter and also a general mammal specialist. And I would like to actually also promote here is tomorrow we will have our World Otter Day webinar. And one of the session is we will have the MON members to actually present on their current works. And another session is we also have invited International Otter Survival Fund and also PADMA to present. So one of the MON aim is to also raising awareness by continuously organize this World Otter Day every year. And also this one of the event that we will engage with zoo and see how and actually promote how zoo actually can play an important role. So one of the MON activity is we collect sightings information all over the public in Malaysia here. And from Sabah MON Sabah side, they also establish a Facebook group, Facebook page to actually for people to actually inform them about otters. So from here, I would like to express my gratitude again to International Otter Survival Fund for inviting me and MNS to showcase our very preliminary otter project and results. And hopefully we will continue this effort. And thank you, Ben. We keep in touch a lot for my work here. And whoever has questions or interest in otters in Malaysia, you can feel free to contact me, and also if you can also browse through our society, Malaysian Nature Society, to know more about our works and also other species works. So here I would like to thank you everyone for your time. So I think we have audience from all around the world. So good day or night, everyone, and of course stay safe due to the pandemic situation here. So. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That was a really good presentation and fascinating. Got a couple of questions for you. Teresa Mason would like to know, do the two species interact in any way, as they seem to be, well, the Asian short-clawed and the smooth-coated otter, they obviously sprint and use the latrine sites in the same place. Have you seen any sort of interaction between them?
Yeah, so we haven't really directly seen any interaction or in the camera trap, we do not document any actual both species come together at one point. But we can see clearly from the activity pattern, they are kind of avoiding each other in terms of active time. Yeah, small claw is more nocturnal, and smooth claw is more on diurnal and nocturnal as well. But yeah, they never actually encounter each other. Yeah.
That kind of the follow-on question asks, do you have any evidence or any suspects for crossbreeding between smooth-coated and Asian small-clawed otters in the park?
Oh, that's a very good question. Yeah. So currently we are at the very initial phase to collect the spring, the scat samples. From there, we might know there might be a hybridization. We are not sure, but in Singapore they have evidence of hybridization between smooth claw and small claw. So I'm sorry that currently I can't answer that question, but hopefully in the future we might have an answer.
Yeah, we look forward to seeing that. Well, another question is, what are the relative sizes of territories of the 3 different species, and do they overlap a lot?
From our initial study and also camera trap, we can't determine the home range size, because most likely we need radio tracking method, or we need very extensive genetic study to see based on individually. So yeah, but overlap, it seems like there is overlap because sympatric location, it show that the species is using the same resources and also same space. So there might be overlap in terms of space, yeah. But yeah, for home range size, we still do not know yet. And very limited study of ecology of otter in Malaysia, and I believe in whole Southeast Asia.
Yeah. You mentioned about the smooth-coated otters being more prevalent in Kuala Lumpur. We're wondering, we know that in Singapore there's been issues of individuals and people chasing otters and maybe getting too close to them. Is there any worries that that could become a problem in KL or not?
Oh, yeah, good question. So far, it seems like the KL people are fond with the otters, really attracted to the otters and happy with it. We haven't had any conflict issue between otters and people in KL. But there is one threat that we have documented, that there are strings. There are strings that tied to the otter neck. It seems like kind of a nylon strings. Fortunately, we have public actually become the eyes and ears to look over it. Fortunately, the string actually disappeared after a few days. Not sure how. Maybe the other otters actually helps to bite it off. But that's so far the only threats that we see. It might be because of people fishing in the river and also throw away the fishing net or the fishing gear kind of nylon string. So that's where the otter will entangle.
Yeah, that makes sense. There's another question here that asks, Malaysia appears to be one of the sources of supply to the growing underground pet trade in Asia. What can you share with us about any work that's being done to stamp this out?
Yeah, true. Based on, if you've seen reports from Traffic, the organization that track all this illegal wildlife trading, it mentioned that Malaysia is one of the sources. We are kind of working with government to actually initiate some effort into monitor the otter trade situation, especially online. But for now, we don't have a real actual actions yet to track it down or to handle this, because underground otter trading is very complicated, especially online. But I would say that we are at the starting phase. Something is initiated, so I hope that in the future we could share more about this. And of course, I think like we have actually reported from public that otter trades otter pets and then they rescue and give this to us. So I hope this could be a good sign that Malaysians are more aware of this. Yeah, so we're definitely going to do more public awareness and education program and reach out to more public people by reducing the demand. I think that's one of the way to reduce otter pet because of
yes,
demand.
definitely.
Yeah,
reduce demand, definitely. There's another question in regards, you put up a couple of pictures of otters being hit by cars or in traffic accidents. Have you got any sort of plans, or is this a major issue, or is there any ways that we can avoid this?
I would say if whether it's a major issue, we don't have any strong data to support whether it's a major issue, but it's an issue that's emerging and we have to look into it. And we are definitely will look into it because our precious hairy-nosed otter is losing bait through roadkill. And our plan, we are still developing. Our plan will be most likely develop a signboard, road signboard, and also we have some looking into whether we develop some underground wildlife crossing for the otters. And yeah, I think this is something that we will look into. But yeah, but I would say the major issue for otters in Malaysia here still conflict, because we have never documented any otter conflict consistently. More of our efforts in Malaysia here is more on large mammals, or they're known as charismatic animals. Yeah, but unfortunately, otters are not categorized as charismatic in Malaysia here. So, but then because we initiate, governments now has the resources with us to do it. So we hope that with this we can actually do more. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I've just noticed that Dung from Save Vietnam's Wildlife has said that she has to go now. So just on behalf of myself at IOSF and the whole of the organization, we'd just like to say thank you to Dung and Save Vietnam's Wildlife for presenting today. Thank you very much. There's just one final thing, and if you have any more questions, Heidi Davis, who was hopefully still here, and Lucas, who isn't attending to this afternoon, actually produced a short video that they wanted to share on World Otter Day to kind of reduce demand of illegal trade, particularly into the pet trade. So I would just like to show you the video quickly. It's about 50 seconds and kind of just wants to highlight, sorry, can you hear that? Can everyone see that and hear that?
No, can't see it.
Okay, 2 seconds. I'll just share again. Yeah, we just wanted to show the video. We're gonna put it on our Facebook page, and I know Heidi herself and Lucas have been sharing it. It's just kind of to deter people from. Yeah, so the plan, they're really passionate about reducing the trade, and they wanted to make a short video which highlights this and kind of deters people from doing that sort of thing, sort of pet trade. So if you see it on Facebook or on any social media pages, then please share it and kind of get our voice out. Well, their voice, because it was kind of all their work, so they deserve a lot of the credit. Woo, you have a couple more questions, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. Okay, yeah.
Oh, sorry, one more question. Let me read it. Oh no, I've lost it. It's gone away. It was.
I answered it by typing. Is it?
Oh, you typed it. You typed the answer. Okay, that's great.
Yeah, the snake one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That's one I seen.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's now 11:30. I would like to express my gratitude towards the IOSF speakers, towards Padmanda Silva for producing her presentation, and also towards Dung, Omar, and Wu for their excellent presentations, and not only their presentations, but perhaps more importantly, their work on otter conservation in their respective areas. If anyone has any further questions for any of the panelists or any of the presenters, then I think you should all have my email. I'm happy to answer them or ask the questions directly to each individual. And other than that, enjoy the rest of World Otter Day. And if you're coming to the second part of our webinar, we look forward to seeing you, and we'll see you later. And again, any questions, please feel free to send them to me. Thank you, Wu, and thank you, Omar, for your time and your expertise as well.
You're welcome, Ben. Thank you for inviting us. Thank you.
Thank you, Omar. And thanks, Wu.
Thank you, Ben. I will attend the second session later.
Brilliant. We'll see you there.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of World Otter Day.